Today, the government of Libya announced the death of Muammar Gaddafi.
Colonel Muammar Gaddafi came to power through a revolution in 1969. He then ruled the country for more than 4 decades. The wave of the Arab Spring brought a so-called new freedom to Libya and ended his rule brutally. He was killed by his own citizens. There are allegations that the Western power applied this Arab Spring model in many other countries. The process seems similar. At first, a small protest begins around a minor issue. Gradually, that protest grows larger. The government uses force to suppress it. As a result, the number of deaths suddenly increases. This leads to intense public anger and finally drives the fall of the government. In the end, the head of state is either killed or forced to flee. But what happened later in the countries where power changed because of the Arab Spring? Did the mass protest fulfill the people's huge expectations, or did the country go in a completely different directions? To understand that, we will talk today about the Gaddafi and Libya case. Stay tuned with Khaborwala. I am Rakib bin Kudus. Before Gaddafi, Libya was a conflicted, unstable and extreme poor country. In 1951, after being freed from British and French colonial rule, it appeared as a monarchy under King Idris. At that time, the country was very poor. There was almost no infrastructure or industry. People's main income came from agriculture and livestock. Even after oil was discovered in 1959, the fortune of Libyans did not really change. The monarchy was weak and corrupt. People's dissatisfactions kept increasing. In this situation, in 1969, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi took power through a military coup. After taking power, Gaddafi declared Libya a republic. His most important and Western unfriendly decision was nationalizing oil resources. He completed his task bravely, ignoring the threats of the West. As a result, the state income increased hugely, and the government started massive infrastructure development and reform. On the one hand, Gaddafi's bad name kept growing in the Western world. He was portrayed as a dictator, a madman, an autocrat, and a human rights violator. On the other hand, Libya's socio-economic conditions saw unprecedented improvement. Within only 6 years, he raised Libya's per capita income in the highest position in Africa, according to the World Bank and United Nations report. Libya's per capita income became comparable to many European countries because of his reforms. Libya's education, healthcare, social security, and living standards reached the top in Africa. During his time, the standard of living for ordinary citizens was far ahead compared to other Middle Eastern and African countries. Let's take a quick look at that. Education was completely free. Yes, 100% free. From primary school to university, education was free. Even if someone wanted to study abroad, the government paid the expenses. The same for healthcare. Hospitals and medical services were completely free. Sometimes that's a dream for most people in any countries. Housing was almost free too. Eliminating homelessness was the government's responsibility. Every citizen was guaranteed a home. Newly married couples were given a house and financial help to start their life. To keep the cost of living low, the government regularly provides subsidies on petrol, gas, electricity, and food, so living expenses were very low. The Gaddafi government had separate projects to increase employment for everyone. Anyone willing to work did not have to wait long for a job. Even in the desert country, Gaddafi made a revolution in agriculture through the Great Man-Made River Project. He brought irrigation to the desert. Farmers received land, machinery, and loans without interest. Gaddafi used oil revenue as the real public wealth. The massive income from oil was mainly used for public welfare. At one point, he even planned to directly distribute part of the income among citizens. It sounds like a dream today, It was once a reality. However, Gaddafi didn't stop the developing his country. He began thinking about the until of all African nations. He strengthened the effort to build independent foreign policy and unity across Africa. The West saw his opposition to their system as disrespect and a challenge. Then he started working in introduce a separate African currency system, and that's where he crossed the West red line. After that, accusations began to appear against him, internal corruption and luxury. Alongside being called a dictator and human rights violator, Western media started portraying him as a sponsor of terrorism. In short, they turned him into an overly nationalist and anti-Western madman. Inside Libya, people started raising voice about freedom of speech. They said Gaddafi didn't allow people to speak freely. Because of that, people's opinions started to change. Many began complaining that citizens were not allowed to express opinion openly. This growing dissatisfaction inside the country was cleverly used by the West. In 2011, when the Arab Spring reached Libya, small protests quickly turned into a large movement. When the government used force to suppress it, the number of deaths suddenly increased. Western media and the international community launched a massive campaign against Gaddafi. Eventually, NATO's military intervention, the rise of rebel groups, and international pressure lead to Gaddafi's downfall. On October 20, 2011, in the city of Sirte, Gaddafi was captured by rebel forces. They beat him brutally. Gaddafi kept saying, "What are you doing? You don't know who I am. Aren't you ashamed? You will regret this." Then he was shot dead. And thus ended Gaddafi's 4 decades rule. During the protests, countless allegations were made against Gaddafi.
هذول اللي وراهم اللي يقوموا بالعمل هذا يعطينهم حبوب راهو مش بإرادتهم.
Protesters showed the Libyan people a dream that after Gaddafi, Libya would become prosperous, democratic and modern. But after his fall, no one tried to prove those accusations, and none of those promises were kept. So how is Libya today? After Gaddafi's fall in 2011, the state systems collapsed. Free education, healthcare and subsidy systems became almost inactive. Infrastructure was destroyed, unemployment increased, and due to weak central government, resources distribution completely stopped. During Gaddafi's rules, even though his model of direct democracy was imposed, law and order were maintained. After his fall, instead of democracy, the country sank into chaos and civil war. With the collapse of central power, rebel groups, tribes and foreign forces divided Libya. Extremist groups like ISIS became active. The citizens' lives became unsafe. Under Gaddafi, Libya was considered controversial by the West, but internally it was stable and influential in Africa through World Health. After his fall, the US, Europe and Gulf countries supported rebels. Russia, Turkey and other regional power also intervened, turning Libya into a horrifying proxy war zone. During Gaddafi's rules, poverty was limited. Basic needs such as education, health, energy, housing and empowerment were ensured through state subsidies. After his fall, hundreds of thousands of people were killed or displaced. Education and health system collapsed. Poverty and inflation increased, and the economy suffered massive destruction. Though the West labeled Gaddafi as a dictator, citizens were enjoyed basic facilities and security. But after the Arab Spring, the so-called new freedom brought only civil war, foreign interference and a long-lasting humanitarian crisis. We hope Libya will one day come out of the uncertainty and chaos, rise again, and its people will remain at least their basic rights. That's all for today. Tell us in the comments what topic you want our next feature to cover.